Imagine closing a $50 million corporate merger while sitting on your couch in your pajamas.
Right, just using your thumb.
Exactly. You are using nothing but your thumb and a smartphone screen. There are no expensive fountain pens. There's no, heavy embossed paper.
Just a glowing green button.
Yeah, a glowing green button that says, I agree. You tap it, and suddenly, legally, millions of dollars change hands. But what actually happens in the milliseconds after you press that button?
It's basically the absolute definition of an invisible, high-stakes infrastructure. I mean, what feels like a really simple, frictionless tap to you is actually the trigger for a massively complex cryptographic chain reaction.
And it's firing off across servers worldwide.
Precisely.
Well, that invisible chain reaction is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to our deep dive into something you probably use every single week, but frankly rarely think about. We're talking about electronic and digital signatures.
Then we've got a really formidable stack of sources for this one.
Oh, we definitely do. We are pulling from technical corporate guides on public key infrastructure or PKI software platform comparisons, and some really deep legal analyses of global signature frameworks.
Like the UETA, the ESIGN Act, and Europe's eIDAS regulation.
Yeah, it's quite the alphabet soup.
It really is, but a necessary one if you want to understand how the modern world works.
Definitely. So our mission today is to decode that alphabet soup. We are going to unearth the fascinating mechanics of how we actually prove who we are online and help you, the listener, understand how to bulletproof your own digital agreements.
We want to lift the hood on that simple act of clicking I agree, right? To reveal the underlying math and the law behind it.
Right, and to do that, I think we have to start with the two terms that our sources point out completely trip everyone up: electronic signatures versus digital signatures.
Oh yeah, people use them like they mean the exact same thing.
They do, but they are fundamentally different.
They're entirely different beasts, and it's a misconception that can actually get companies into significant legal trouble.
So how should we frame the difference?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can think of electronic signature platforms like your DocuSigns or your Adobe Signs as focusing entirely on the how.
The how.
Right. How does the document get from point A to point B? They handle the workflow automation, the user interface, the tracking.
Oh, I see. Like the complex routing where maybe 5 different executives across 3 time zones need to sign something in a very specific order.
Exactly. They make it incredibly easy.
Which is great. So I don't have to print out a 60-page PDF, sign the very last page, scan it back in, and, email it to HR.
Right. Nobody wants to do that anymore.
So I've always thought about an e-signature platform as basically being a highly efficient courier service.
That's a good way to look at it.
It guarantees the document gets to the right desks quickly, it tracks the package, and it gets a quick scribble on a clipboard at the end.
It's a great analogy, but let's take it a step further to really highlight the difference with digital signatures.
Okay, lay it on me.
So the courier service gets a scribble on a clipboard, sure. But a digital signature, which is provided by PKI and certificate authorities like DigiCert or IdenTrust, is like having a strict, highly trained notary public physically riding along with that courier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this notary isn't just checking government-issued IDs. When the document is signed, the notary fundamentally alters the chemical makeup of the paper itself.
Wait, really?
Well, in the analogy, yes. They seal it in tamper-evident wax, so that if someone tries to change even a single comma later, the entire document just shatters.
That chemical alteration, that's the cryptographic math, right?
Exactly. Digital signatures focus entirely on the who and the what. They provide strict identity vetting and what the industry calls tamper-evident non-repudiation.
Non-repudiation, that's a heavy legal term.
It just means you can't deny you did it. It's the underlying mathematical proof that you are who you say you are, and that the document hasn't been altered by a single pixel since the moment you signed it.
Which is why relying just on the courier service might not be enough for a massive high-stakes deal.
Right, because with a standard e-signature, the identity vetting is highly variable.
Like the platform might just verify that you clicked a link sent to a specific email address.
Or maybe they send a quick SMS code to your phone.
Yeah, it relies heavily on vendor trust, which, to be fair, is perfectly fine for everyday business.
Oh, absolutely. For an HR onboarding packet or a standard sales contract, for everyday velocity, the courier service is perfect.
But a digital signature requires rigorous identity vetting.
Very rigorous. To get a digital certificate from a recognized authority, you might have to go through remote identity verification via a live video call.
Or scanning your passport.
Scanning your passport, or even in-person vetting. It's often legally mandated for heavily regulated industries.
Mm.
Think banking, government defense contracts, or advanced legal filings.
Okay, so this brings up a massive logistical question for me.
What's that?
If I'm running a business, I want the slick, frictionless user interface of the courier service. But for my big contracts, I absolutely need that cryptographic, tamper-evident wax seal of the notary. Do I have to choose between convenience and security? Like, can we essentially put the vault inside the courier service?
You don't have to choose at all. In enterprise environments, these two completely different systems are actually integrated to work flawlessly together.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, our sources on combining digital and e-signatures highlight how companies will buy specialized document signing certificates from certificate authority partners.
Like DigiCert.
Exactly. And they use APIs to integrate those directly into user-friendly platforms like DocuSign or Adobe Acrobat Sign.
So the end user doesn't even know the heavy cryptographic lifting is happening. They just see the regular DocuSign interface.
That is the beauty of it. The user logs in, they click the exact same green button they always click. But on the back end, a cloud signature is taking place.
A cloud signature, okay.
Right. The certificate authority holds the highly secure signing keys in what are called hardware security modules, or HSMs. Meanwhile, the eSign platform manages the pretty interface.
Wait, let's pause on hardware security modules because that term sounds like something straight out of a Mission Impossible movie.
It kind of is.
What does an HSM actually look like physically?
It's essentially a fortified, tamper-resistant supercomputer.
Hmm.
These are physical, rack-mounted servers sitting in highly guarded data centers.
Okay.
And they are literally designed to self-destruct their data if tampered with.
Wait, self-destruct. Are you serious?
Completely serious. If someone physically breaks into the data center and tries to drill into the HSM chassis, or even alter its temperature, or measure its electromagnetic emissions to steal the keys,
The device just freaks out.
the device instantly zeroes out all the cryptographic keys it holds. It wipes itself.
So it's a literal Fort Knox that vaporizes its own gold if someone even touches the vault door.
That's a great way to put it.
And that API integration lets the user's phone talk to that self-destructing vault in a fraction of a second. That is incredible.
It's amazing tech.
But it means that the vault is holding something profoundly precious, right? The digital certificate itself.
Yes. The digital certificate is the absolute anchor of trust in this entire ecosystem.
I like to think of a digital certificate like a digital passport. It contains your identity, it has a strict validity period, and honestly, it only matters because it is stamped by a recognized, trusted authority.
Right. You can't just print your own passport at home and expect border control to let you on an international flight.
Exactly, but we can't just wave our hands and say, you know, it works because of the math. How does the underlying math actually manufacture that trust?
Well, to understand the engine, we have to look at public key infrastructure, or PKI, and specifically asymmetric cryptography.
Okay, break that down for us, because asymmetric cryptography is one of those terms that makes people's eyes just totally glaze over.
I know.
But it is the bedrock of the modern internet.
It really is. So in traditional security, you have a single password or a single key to lock and unlock a file. That's symmetric. But in asymmetric cryptography, every entity generates a pair of keys, a private key and a public key. They are mathematically linked, but fundamentally different.
Let's try to visualize this. Think
Yeah.
of your public key like an open padlock that you hand out to the world.
Okay, I like that.
Anyone can put a document in a box, snap your public padlock shut on it, and feel secure. But your private key is the actual physical jagged metal key.
Yes.
It is the absolute only thing in the universe that can unlock that padlock once it's snapped shut.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. And the reason it works goes down to one-way mathematical functions.
One-way math.
Right. For example, it is incredibly easy for a computer to multiply two massive prime numbers together to get a giant result. That takes milliseconds.
Sure.
But if you only have that giant resulting number, it is practically impossible for even the world's fastest supercomputers to reverse engineer it and figure out which two original prime numbers were used.
So the math relies on the fact that some calculations are just a one-way street. Easy to do, virtually impossible to undo.
Precisely. You keep your private key highly guarded. When you want to digitally sign a document, your software uses your private key to apply a cryptographic signature.
And then your public key is shared openly.
Exactly. When someone receives your signed document, their software uses your public key to verify it. If the public key successfully verifies the signature, the one-way math proves absolutely that it could only have been created by your highly guarded private key.
And the entity that steps in to verify all of this, the government issuing the passport, in our analogy, is the certificate authority, the CA.
Right, they are the ones saying, we officially vouch that this specific public key padlock belongs to this specific human being.
But looking at our sources, not all CAs are playing in the exact same sandbox. You've got different flavors for different needs.
You do. The sources highlight a really fascinating contrast between providers. Take DigiCert, for instance.
Yeah, okay.
They have incredibly broad commercial trust. They are trusted by all the major operating systems, Apple, Microsoft, Google.
So they're everywhere.
Everywhere. If a massive global enterprise needs an organization-validated certificate quickly, DigiCert can often do that the exact same day. And they validate that organization for an 825-day window, which makes future certificates highly streamlined.
Okay, but then you look at a CA like IdenTrust, and it's a completely different vibe.
Yeah, IdenTrust is deeply, deeply embedded in government integration.
Like federal level stuff.
Right. They are cross-certified with the Federal Bridge CA and the Department of Defense External Certificate Authority programs.
Wow.
Yeah, if you were a defense contractor sending technical blueprints to the Pentagon, you were almost certainly using an IdenTrust digital certificate. The federal government specifically trusts their infrastructure to meet their exact operational standards.
So practically speaking, let's say I'm running a mid-sized engineering firm doing government contract work. How on earth am I managing all these digital passports?
It's a big job.
Do I have to buy a $400 individual certificate on a physical USB drive for every single one of my 500 employees? Because that sounds like a total logistical nightmare for my IT department.
It really would be.
Yeah.
This raises an important point about deployment models, and companies generally have two choices: shared organization certificates or individual employee certificates.
Okay, walk us through the shared organization model first.
With a shared organization certificate, the CA issues one master certificate to the legal entity, so your engineering firm.
Got it.
The private key is stored centrally on a secure server, or like we talked about earlier, in HSM. Your employees log in through a secure portal, usually with multi-factor authentication, and they trigger a signature on behalf of the company.
That seems way more cost-effective. Plus, if I sign a vendor contract on behalf of the company, the signature is permanently tied to the business entity itself, not just me personally.
Right. It survives employee turnover. If an executive leaves, the company's past signatures are still perfectly valid, and you don't have to buy a new certificate for the replacement executive.
But wait, what's the downside?
Well, the critical downside is that you are relying entirely on your internal access logs to prove which employee actually clicked the button.
Ah. So if there's an internal dispute or a lawsuit about who approved a multi-million-dollar purchase order, the cryptographic certificate just says the company did it.
Exactly. It doesn't name the person,
Yeah.
which is why highly regulated companies choose individual employee certificates.
Okay, how does that work?
In that model, your employee, let's call him John, gets a certificate with his legal name on it. It's usually stored on a physical USB token or a smart card that he has to physically plug into his laptop.
Oh, I see.
It provides ironclad non-repudiation. John cannot deny he signed it because his personal private key, requiring his specific PIN, was used.
But the costs multiply per person, and IT has to manage renewing hundreds of individual certificates.
And it's a huge overhead.
And what happens when things go wrong? Let's play out a dramatic scenario, because our sources dedicate a lot of ink to the fallout.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so John, who has his own individual certificate on a USB token, goes totally rogue. He gets fired, he storms out of the building, and he takes his token with him.
A nightmare scenario.
Or maybe he just leaves it at a coffee shop and someone steals it. What happens to that cryptographic trust?
That is a Tier 1 security event. Your IT department must immediately contact the certificate authority to revoke John's certificate.
Like, how fast does that happen?
Instantly. The CA takes the unique serial number of John's digital certificate and publishes it to a globally distributed certificate revocation list, or a CRL.
A CRL.
Right. Moving forward, whenever anyone opens a document signed by John, their PDF reader quietly checks that CRL in the background. If the certificate serial number is on the list, the software flashes a massive red warning that the signature is invalid and untrusted.
But wait, this brings up a massive paradox.
What's that?
If John signed a huge 5-year lease agreement 2 years ago when he was in perfectly good standing, does revoking his key today suddenly invalidate the lease from 2 years ago?
No, and that is actually a brilliant feature of the PKI system. Documents signed before the compromise remain legally valid.
How does the software know when he signed it?
It's achieved through secure cryptographic timestamps. When John signed the document 2 years ago, a trusted time server embedded a timestamp into the signature itself.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so when a court looks at it, they see the signature happened while the certificate was in good standing. The math protects the past, while the revocation protects the future.
Okay, so we've established the unshakable cryptographic math behind the signature. We've got private keys, public keys, one-way math functions, HSMs, and CAs.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But here is the ultimate reality check. Math does not wear a black robe. Math doesn't bang a gavel. How do global courtrooms actually view all this technology?
That is the ultimate test. You can have the best math in the world, but if a judge doesn't recognize it, the contract is completely worthless.
Exactly.
And this brings us to the global legal frameworks. In the United States, we have two primary pillars. First, the ESIGN Act, which was passed at the federal level in 2000 to cover interstate and foreign commerce.
And the second?
Second is the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, or UETA. That's a state-level model law passed in 1999 and adopted by almost every state.
Let's contextualize 1999 and 2000 for a second. The internet was absolutely exploding with the dot-com boom, but businesses were legally paralyzed because they were trying to do digital speed with analog law.
Yes, exactly.
Like a faxed signature or an email agreement just wasn't holding up in court. UETA and ESIGN were essentially massive panic buttons hit by lawmakers to keep the American economy moving.
It's entirely accurate. The overarching theme of both of those laws is the principle of non-discrimination.
Meaning what, exactly?
They basically state that a contract cannot be denied legal effect or enforceability solely because it is in electronic form. They're fundamentally technology neutral.
Okay, I understand the panic in 1999, but I'm going to push back heavily on the U.S. framework here based on our sources.
Go for it.
Under ESIGN and UETA, there are basically 4 requirements for legal validity: intent to sign, consent to do business electronically, association with the record, and record retention.
That's the list.
But intent and consent often just means I checked a little box on a website. If the bar is really that incredibly low in the U.S., why hasn't the entire digital economy collapsed into a black hole of fraud? Especially when you compare it to the standards over in Europe.
It's a fantastic question, and it highlights a massive philosophical difference in our legal systems. The U.S. system prioritizes the velocity of commerce.
Move fast and break things.
Exactly. The philosophy is basically, we'll let you do business easily and remove all the friction up front. But if you get sued for fraud later, you bear the total burden of producing the forensic evidence to back up that signature.
Ah, so it's a low barrier to entry, but a highly complex barrier to defend in a lawsuit.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the European Union takes a much more prescriptive fraud prevention upfront approach with the eIDAS regulation.
Right.
eIDAS uses a rigid tiered system that forces friction back into the process to guarantee security.
Yeah, our legal sources break eIDAS down into simple, advanced, and qualified tiers. Let's walk through those to see the contrast.
Sure. The lowest tier is a simple electronic signature, or SES. That's essentially just typing your name at the bottom of an email.
Which doesn't seem very secure.
It has some legal standing, but the burden of proof is entirely on you if someone challenges it. Next up is the advanced electronic signature, or AES.
Okay, what makes it advanced?
This requires the signature to be uniquely linked to the signer, under their sole control, and critically tamper evident.
So AES is where we start seeing the requirement for that PKI math and the public-private key pairs we discussed earlier.
Yes, the math becomes legally mandatory at the AES tier, but the absolute gold standard under eIDAS is the qualified electronic signature, or QES.
A QES.
Right. This is an advanced signature that must be created by a specialized, audited hardware device, like a smart card or an HSM, and backed by a qualified trust service provider vetted by the government.
And the legal power of a QES is staggering.
It really is. Under EU law, a QES holds the exact equivalent legal effect of a handwritten, wet ink signature in every single member state.
That's wild.
It practically flips the burden of proof. If someone challenges a QES in court, they have to prove the math was broken, which is nearly impossible.
So if the U.S. standard allows for low-friction checkboxes, what actually happens when a U.S. contract goes to court? If the judge isn't looking at a qualified hardware token, what are they looking at?
Well, this is where the e-signature courier service has to show its receipts. If an ESIGN or UETA signature is challenged, the judge is going to demand the forensic audit trail.
So they aren't looking at how pretty the cursive font is on the PDF?
Not at all. A legally defensible audit trail needs to capture a massive amount of metadata.
Like what?
The signer's IP address, device information, secure timestamps for every single action, when they view the document, when they clicked agree, and most importantly, cryptographic hashing of the document itself.
Let's quickly define cryptographic hashing for you, the listener, because it's distinct from encryption. Hashing is essentially generating a digital fingerprint for a file.
Right.
You run a 100-page contract through a hashing algorithm, and it spits out a unique string of letters and numbers.
Correct. And the crucial mechanism of hashing is what's called the avalanche effect.
The avalanche effect.
Yeah. If you take that 100-page contract and change a single comma on page 47 and then run it through the algorithm again, the resulting fingerprint is completely and entirely different.
So the audit trail includes that hash. If the hashes match, the judge knows the document hasn't been tampered with since the exact millisecond the user clicked, "I agree."
Precisely. Furthermore, the platform hosting all this audit data needs to be bulletproof. Courts look for compliance certifications.
Oh, like server security.
Yes. They want to see ISO 27001 for information security management, SOC2 Type 2 audits, proving the company actually follows its own security protocols, and if you're in healthcare, strict AFK compliance.
Okay, so we've built this incredibly secure, mathematically proven, globally recognized system. We have one-way math functions, self-destructing hardware vaults, and international laws.
It's a fortress.
But reading through the end of our legal sources, there are some fascinating, really stubborn exceptions. There are still times when all this beautiful math means absolutely nothing, and you still have to go find a physical ballpoint pen.
There are. The law moves slower than technology, and society still harbors a deep attachment to physical ritual for life's most serious moments.
Can you give an example?
In the U.S., for example, e-signatures are generally not legally valid for adoption agreements, divorce decrees, or wills and testamentary trusts.
Which makes profound sense when you really think about it. Those are highly emotional, heavily contested life events. A judge wants maximum physical evidence of intent.
Right.
They want witnesses in the room, watching the ink bleed into the paper to ensure no one was being coerced.
Exactly. And then there are certain real estate deeds, like the transfer of title or legal mortgages, which often still require physical notarization. Though the rapid rise of remote online notarization is starting to modernize that sector.
The one exception that really stood out to me in the sources was the murky, highly state-dependent gray area of digital powers of attorney, especially health-related POAs.
Oh yeah, that is a notoriously complex and dangerous area for legal tech.
Why is that?
Because a power of attorney grants someone else the legal right to make massive financial or life-or-death medical decisions for you. So states are fiercely protective of how they are executed. Some states say an electronic signature is perfectly fine for a business POA, but strictly forbid it for a healthcare POA.
So the legal consensus from our sources is basically you can technically use digital signatures for many POAs, but because the state laws are so intensely fractured, it's a massive legal risk to try it without hyper-specific local legal counsel.
It perfectly highlights the ongoing tension between the limitless speed of digital commerce and the necessary caution of traditional human law.
So let's bring this all together. What a journey this has been. We started with the incredibly simple, frictionless user interface of an e-signature platform, just sitting in your pajamas, clicking a green button.
Right.
And then we dropped down into the cryptographic bedrock of public key infrastructure, CAs, one-way math functions, and self-destructing hardware vaults.
It's a deep rabbit hole.
It really is. And then we zoomed out to look at the global legal frameworks, from eSign's panic button origins to eIDAS's strict tiers that actually hold our modern digital economy together.
It really is a marvel of modern infrastructure. I mean, it requires seamless cooperation between theoretical mathematicians, software engineers, and global lawmakers just to make that single tap on your smartphone legally binding.
Exactly. So, to you, our listener, the takeaway here is profound. The next time you sign an apartment lease or accept a new job offer or execute a vendor contract with a single click, take a second.
Yeah, think about what's happening.
Visualize the massive invisible infrastructure of cryptographic hashes, root CAs, and federal laws that are firing off in milliseconds across the globe to legally bind you to that agreement. It is anything but simple.
It's totally invisible to the naked eye, but mathematically it is as solid as concrete.
Which brings up one final provocative thought that I cannot get out of my head, and it's something I want you to mull over after this finishes.
Oh, here we go.
Our sources place a massive emphasis on non-repudiation, the ability to prove undeniably that a specific human being took a specific action. But we are rapidly entering an era of hyper-realistic AI and deepfakes.
That's true.
Voice cloning is indistinguishable from reality. Live video alteration is happening in real time. Seeing and hearing are no longer believing.
That is a terrifyingly real frontier that the legal system is really just beginning to wake up to.
So here's the thought. As our physical senses become completely unreliable in the digital space, will the strict, rigorous mathematics of PKI and digital certificates become the absolute only way society can prove a human actually created a document, sent an email, or agreed to a truth?
Wow.
Will we all eventually be forced to carry a cryptographic digital passport just to prove to the internet that we are real, breathing humans?
It's a heavy question. As the digital world gets muddier, the math might be our only objective defense.
It's a long way from ink bleeding into paper fibers. But in this invisible landscape we've built, that cryptographic wax seal might just be the only thing keeping the waters of truth from washing us all away. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.